Hi, my name is Shapley Bergeron, and I'm here today to talk to you about snowboarding basics. It's important to know the basics because when you go out to snowboard, you want to make sure everything you have is properly sized to you and you know about safety. First and foremost, when you first choose a board, you want to make sure it is the right height for you. For beginners, you want to have a slightly shorter board. That way it's a little bit easier to navigate. One way to measure the size of the board is to hold it upright and stand in front of it. You want it to be between your collarbone and your chin. Beginners would probably go closer to the collarbone size. Everything is measured in centimeters on a snowboard, so you can always, if you don't have a snowboard to measure, just use a regular tape measure. The next thing that's important is the width of the board. You want to make sure that this side of the board, your boots fit snug. You don't want your boots to be hanging over because they'll catch on the snow. And if it's too much of a distance from your boot to the edge of the board, it's going to be harder to navigate. So a good rule of thumb is to just have them hanging over like 1/4 of an inch. And then the bindings, which is this right here, is what holds your boots in. And to do this, most larger boards will have 2 straps, but because this one's so small, you just slide it in snug. And usually you want the boots to fit to the end of the bindings. Obviously this is not the case with this board. And again, if they're hanging over, it's going to be a little bit dangerous and harder to use. To take the bindings off, there's a little lever right here, and you just slide it open and you can take the foot out. You also want to have the right size boot. They should fit just like a regular shoe. Usually you want to kind of go for a slightly snug feeling, just because there's so much padding inside. And the padding inside is to help with support and to avoid injuries. Also, snowboard boots this one doesn't really, but they're a little bit pitched forward, so it kind of feels like you're walking on your tippy toes. That's to help while you're snowboarding. When you're just walking around in them, it is a little awkward. The next thing that's important is the weight. So you want a properly, like an adequate size weight for your board, and that's kind of judged on what the person themselves weighs. If it's too light, and the person's using the board, it's just going to slip out from underneath them. And if it's too heavy, it's going to be too hard to navigate through the snow. When you're looking at a board, you want to know the proper parts, especially the top from the bottom, which the top is called the nose, bottom is called the tail. The nose is usually a little bit narrower right through here, and that's just to help kind of steer the board. And the chamber of the board is this middle part right here where the boots and bindings go. Rider stance is also important because you want to be comfortable when you're riding through the snow. There's 2 different stances that are usually common, regular and goofy. Regular is the most common because most people are right side dominant. So when somebody is riding regular, they will have their left foot in the front towards the nose of the board and their right foot behind steering the board. Goofy is the opposite, so their right foot would be in front, left would be behind. Most people, especially beginners, will be started out going regular, and if they're still kind of struggling, you can switch it up just by the screws inside here. You can turn the bindings around the opposite direction. Most of it is trial and error. And then once you get the proper stance, either regular or goofy, then you can go into angling the bindings left or right, and that helps with being more comfortable when you're riding. The next thing that's really important is the safety. You always want to dress warm to avoid frostbite. So hats, mittens, winter coats, snow pants. Goggles are important too because especially if it's snowing or they're making snow out there, it'll help it from getting in your eyes. And some goggles do act as sunglasses too, so you don't get a glare off the snow. The most common injuries are to your wrists, your knees, your tailbone, and your head. Most of the injuries are caused by the riders riding flat on the ground, not having it like the front or the back tipped up, and that causes them to catch the snow, either falling forward on their knees or back on their tailbone. Wrists come into play because as you're falling forward, you obviously want to catch yourself, and your arms are the only thing that's still mobile because your feet are strapped in. So that the impact on your wrists usually results in broken wrists, sprained wrists. Another common injury is to the head, either from hitting your head or just having a hard impact on like a patch of ice. Some people might run into a tree. That could also be a head injury. One way to prevent that is to wear a ski or snowboard accepted helmet. Most people want to, or try to customize their board, their clothes, whatever they like. A lot of people you'll see will put stickers on the top of their board here, just from mountains that they've been at, or whatever they like. Some add-ons that you can put onto your board would be a stomp pad, which goes in between the bindings here. This one kind of has one built into it, but a stomp pad is usually made out of just rubber and it's kind of rigid, and that's to help when you're getting off of a chairlift, because you'll have one foot strapped in and one foot free. So when you're riding down the chairlift, you'll have somewhere stable to put your foot. Another thing is a strap, which would clip somewhere around your binding, and then you clip it to your boot, the other end of it. That way when you're on a chairlift, your binding breaks, your board's not going to fall all the way to the ground. It'll be held on by the string. So now that you know most of the basics, and you want to try out snowboarding, I do encourage you to take a lesson. That way you can have some proper help on starting, stopping, turning, and somebody can help you adjust your board to how you want to go. And taking a lesson also is important because it'll help with your safety and the safety of others.
Thanks.